All right, we're going to go over the study guide. So if you will make sure and pay attention, I'm going to move along. And if you need me to stop, raise your hand and I can pause. Okay, we're starting off here. This is a two-step equation. I like to draw a line down just to keep the two sides apart. Remember, when you're doing the multi-step equations, you want to use the steps. Don't call me after midnight. The D is distributive, the C combine like terms, the M move the variables to the same side, then the A is inverse of adding and subtraction, and the M is the inverse of multiplication or division. You must follow these steps in order to get your problem correct. Okay, so here I'm going to first of all move this 4 by doing the inverse of adding or subtracting, because my whole goal is to eventually get X over on this side all by itself. So it's a positive 4, so instead I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. Those cancel and I bring down a negative X or minus X. Don't forget to bring down the signs, equals, and a negative 18 minus 4 is a negative 22. Guys, you are allowed to use your calculator on this test, so take advantage of it. If you did not do a negative 18 minus 4 and get a negative 22, you need to be punching this stuff into the calculator. Because think, on a number line, if you go back 18 and then you go back 4, you're back a total of 22. Okay, I don't want a negative X, I want a positive X. So I'm going to put that understood 1. That's multiplication, so the inverse would be to divide both sides by a negative 1, so I get X equals a 22. Now, if you want to double check your problem, do that. Take the problem and substitute in 22 for X. So it's 4 minus X, which is 22, and see if it does indeed equal a negative 18. And it does. So I know that my answer should be a positive 22, because it was 4 minus whatever X is. 4 minus my X. Okay, let's move over and look at problem 2. Okay, I'm going to follow those same steps. The first thing here is I want to get rid of this 4 on the bottom here. So what I'm going to do, this is division. So this is one of those special cases where I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. That's going to be my first step. Those cancel and I have X plus 1 equals, and this is going to be a negative 12, because when you multiply, unlike signs, your answer is a negative. Or when you multiply and divide, unlike signs, your answer is going to be a negative. Okay, so now I'm going to do the inverse of adding 1. I'm going to subtract 1 from this side and from that side, and I end up with X equals a negative 13. Once again, you can check this answer. Go up to your original problem, and in place of X, plug in a negative 13. And when you solve this, you get a negative 12 plus 1. That divided by 4 does give you a negative 3, which is right here. So you can check your answers. Okay, let's go down to number 3. Okay, for number 3, we want to do the inverse of adding or subtraction. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. I'm going to add 8 on this side, and I'm going to add 8 over here. So that is going to give me, those cancel, and I have 2/3 X equals a 20. Because 12 plus 8 is 20. Now, this is multiplication. The inverse is to divide. So I need to divide both sides by 2/3. Okay, when you divide by a fraction, you're actually going to multiply by the reciprocal, which means you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. You're going to flip it. it cancels out, so you have x. And if you multiplied this side by 3 over 2, then you have to multiply this side by 3 over 2. So then 20 times 3 is 60 divided by 2 gives me 30. Because remember, when you're multiplying fractions, you multiply across the top and you multiply across the bottom. Any number by itself is understood as being over 1. All right, let's move over and do problem 4. Okay, we're going to go through our steps. Don't call me after midnight. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to see if we need to do the distributive. We don't have that. Call, combine like terms on either side. Well, when I cover up either side, I see that I don't have any like terms. So it's don't call, and then there's an M for mean, and that means to move your variables to the same side. Now, we can move this variable over here, or you can move it over here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 52Q from this side, which will cancel, and from this side. 50 minus 52 is a negative 2. I'm going to bring down the Q, and then I'm going to bring everything else down. That comes down. Always bring the signs. Now this is a two-step equation. I'm going to do the inverse of adding or subtracting on the same side as the variable. So I'm going to add 43 here, and I'm going to add 43 here. And that gives me a negative 2Q equals, and then this is going to be a negative 38. Last step, this is times, so the inverse would be to multiply both sides by, this is multiplication, so the inverse is to divide both sides by a negative 2, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and it would be a positive 19. 38 divided by 2 is 19. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, here we go. Don't call me after midnight. Don't. Distributive property. I don't have any parentheses. Okay, don't call. Combine like terms. Well, over here, these are like terms because they both contain an M on the left-hand side of the equal sign, and on the right-hand side of the equal sign, these are like terms. So over here, I'm going to combine. I'm a negative 6M plus a positive 8M is 2M. And then I'm going to bring down the minus 6. Over here, I'm going to put my equal sign. I'm going to bring down this 2M. And a negative 5 minus 1 is a negative 6. Right now, I see this is going to be one of those special cases that we just talked about the other day. I have the exact same thing on both sides of this problem. If I went to the third step, which is to move variables to the same side, the inverse of a positive 2M would be to subtract 2M. From here, it cancels. And from here, well, that would cancel too. So I'm left with a negative 6 equals a negative 6. So this one, the actual answer is infinite solutions. There's some on the back that are labeled that, but this one just happened to turn out that way. Okay, well, let's look at number 6. Here we go. For this problem, first step is distributive. So we're going to multiply what's in front times everything on the inside. So that gives me 8 minus 2x equals 10. Now it's time to do the inverse of adding or subtracting because this is a two-step equation. Well, this is 8, so the inverse will be to do the inverse, which is to subtract. So I get 10 minus 8. So I bring down the negative 2x. Don't forget the signs in front or you're going to get the wrong answers. and 10 minus 8 is a positive 2. Last step, inverse of multiplication would be to divide both sides by a negative 2. And I end up getting x is equal to a negative 1. All right, let's go to number 7. Okay, problem 7. Here we go. Mr. Drury is 3 years older than, oh, it does not want to stop focusing. So let's try me go like this. Nope, still don't want to stop. So let me put something, a piece of paper there on the bottom part and see if this will help. Now let's see if that'll stop it. Okay, here we go. Mr. Drury is 3 years older than twice Isabella's age. If Mr. Drury is 25, then how old is Isabella? Write and solve an equation to find your answer. Okay, the part that it says that he is 25, is means we're going to do equal. Okay, so this problem's going to be equal to 25. All right, it says that Mr. Drury is 3 years older, so I'm going to put a plus 3. Then twice Isabella's age, so 2, and I'm going to make Isabella, I'm going to make her a B. So you can see now, Mr. Drury's 25. He's 3 years older than twice Isabella's age. So now let's solve and see how old Isabella is. Isabella is B. So this is a two-step equation. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, here and here. Bring down 2b equals 22. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And I get Isabella is 11 years old. All right, let's go to problem 8. Problem 8. Okay. Miss Zhao and Mrs. Jones are both selling candy. Miss Zhao starts with $30 in her bank account. Okay, so she has $30. She sells candy for 50 cents each. Mrs. Jones starts with $21 in her bank account, and she sells candy for 65 cents each. How much candy do they need to sell to have an equal amount of money? So we want these two to be equal. So I'm going to put an equal sign in between these two mathematical expressions. So she starts with 30, and then she makes 50 cents per piece of candy. So I'm going to say plus 50.50 C. Mrs. Jones starts with 21 and makes 65 cents per piece of candy. So that's her equation. So we want to find out how much do they have to sell of the candy, how much candy, until they have an equal amount. So we're going to solve now for C. So this helps us set up two expressions, then we solve. Okay, so here we go. We're going to solve this just like every other equation. Don't call me after midnight. Don't have distributive. Cannot combine like terms on either side. So now I'm going to go to move the variables to the same side. I'm going to go ahead on this one and I'm going to move this variable over because I want to keep positive money. And so if I do that, then this cancels and I bring down 30, bring down 21, and then I have plus, and this is going to end up being 15 cents per candy. Now it's a two-step equation. So I want to do the inverse of adding or subtracting. I want to get C by itself at the end. So this is being times C. So I want to move this by adding or subtracting. Well, it's positive, so I'm going to subtract it from this side and from this one. So that means over here I have 9, and over here those cancel. So over here I have 0.15 C. Now I'm going to do the inverse of multiplication, which is to divide both sides by 15 cents. And when I do that, I get 60 equals C. So basically 60 pieces of candy. So that answered the first question. The second question says, how much money will they have? So that means I'm going to take this first expression here and I'm going to plug 60, which is the candy, 60 in for C. So I'm going to do 30 plus 50, and then in place of C, I'm going to put in the 60. And so then 30 plus 50 cents times 60 is going to end up giving me a total of 60. So $60, because half of 60 is 30, and 30 plus 30 is 60. So after they each sell 60 pieces of candy, they're going to each have a $60. So we just made an expression for Miss Zhao and an expression for Miss Jones, and then we solved it like a multi-step equation. Okay, final problem on the front. Follow the steps in the problem, then correct if needed. Okay, first one is to do the distributive. Okay, so I'm going to multiply that and that. So a negative 3 times b is a negative 3b, and then a negative 3 times 9 would be a negative 27. So right here is the mistake, right there. So this should be a negative 3b minus 27 equals a negative 6. From there, you could solve the problem, then correct if needed. So that would be the correction. Okay, I'm going to pause now to talk about it with you, and then we'll do what's on the back.